Now I'm going to create a chapter called Bureaucrat. What's up with that? It is during a time of election season, and perhaps you'll hear just about everybody say, Democrat or Republican, it doesn't really matter. Nothing ever changes.
So I don't care about this.
Essentially, this is the profoundest way, perhaps ever, of expressing this conversation is that the Democrat nor the Republican changes, but you have to change. You have to be the one who begins to change. So there's a lot of media, and you can listen to Alex Jones about how bad the media is, or you can just turn it off. And you can listen to the news about how bad the gridlock is in Washington and the politicians, or how here in Pennsylvania, how nothing ever gets done in Harrisburg. And you can talk about how bad all the government programs are. This is going to be the form where complaints, where we see the problem and we automatically eat bananas and start thinking about the solution. And what the solution is each of these people has a boss. And who's the overriding boss of everybody in the public sector? It ultimately comes back to us. And we really have to do our job as being the bosses of the people who are working for the country off of money allotted to the state by being a taxpayer here. Each time one of these finite situations happens, you have to begin to express in the form of an email, in the form of communication that I begin to see a problem here, but there's no real problems, only solutions, says John Lennon. And from those solutions, we can begin to work up the chain and work up the ladder. Now, I'm not sure if everybody knows that the government is transparent and they have to show all the bills and where they are appropriated and what money is appropriated. So we have to become systematic in following the money and understanding where the money goes and why. And we, the people of Jacques Fresco resonance, have to begin to understand how to balance a budget ourselves and begin to look at the big picture of how a state functions, how a country functions, and start to infuse our input in a big way. Now, one of the biggest conversations that I want to have here that's going to make the Venus Project people different and right and winners is with the notion of Victor Hugo, an idea can withstand any army. And that is what really makes us powerful. Sigmund Freud came up with the concept that people act out of sexual and violent repressive desires. And then along came Napoleon Hill with a book called Think and Grow Rich that talked about the concept of sexual transmutation. And now we don't really need the violence edge. We see what Sigmund Freud was talking about was how the violence is repressed. And kids today, they use the video games, the violent video games, to work on their own game. They work on their own pattern for life rather than concentrate on beating people up. I think it's mostly the older generation anymore that would take a gun and shoot another person no matter what the circumstance. Now, I've heard the argument of the greater good. Would you be willing to shoot somebody before they shoot somebody else? And my answer is no. But it comes with a clause that in Rwanda, after they had their genocides over there, instead of sending in military personnel, they sent in psychologists to sit down with the killers. And the next generation, they got together and they apologized to one another. And that didn't have to sprawl out into an intergenerational battle because you can solve everything right in the now. So there's no way that the Venus Project could be considered dangerous because what we have is ideas. We know our body is a function of our mind, and so therefore we don't have to use our hands and our fists and our guns to get what we want because our answer is on the side of evolution and on the side of really winning. So that is a big point. Anybody who would think somebody from one of the fringe groups is the same people from the Venus Project, there's a very big divide. The people of the Venus Project are the ascended masters, the ones who've had need for concept for higher order thinking, and they really can relate to an eternal consciousness. What? Okay, and that will be where I will end the chapter.